some men call.
God is standing at the doorstep of your consciousness. All you need to do is invite Him in.
Since others join and shout when others shout.
Good morning, everyone. So today's topic is a little bit interesting. It's something we encounter in daily lives. The topic is, oh, hi, Louise. Sorry. The topic is, when is it right to share these spiritual truths, these spiritual teachings, with whom, and what is the criterion for doing it? Because if we share it with someone that are not yet ready for it, they might start doubting it and be turned away from it. And you can also turn that around and ask, how ready am I to receive the spiritual truth? At one level, obviously, we are. Paramhansa Yogananda, whose teachings we follow here, he said it takes very, very, very good karma to even want to know God. So that readiness is unquestioned for perhaps all people in this room and for all people listening to this. But still, we are not static beings. Things change from day to day. Some days you're of higher energy, some days you're of lower energy. I remember once I'd driven up to Glacier National Park up in Montana. And perhaps it was being in nature for that many days, and I had some good meditations. And as I was driving back, I don't know if you've ever driven through Montana. There are not that many people, and it's very, very beautiful. And it's very easy to feel that you are truly one with the earth. And because of all of those, I just had this sense of what a big role God played in my life. I was just examining how things had progressed and what an unusual place I had found myself. And, but for the grace of God, it's just such a palpable feeling. And I knew something special was happening. So this was near Bozeman, Montana, I think. All cities begin with a B in Montana, so I'm always confused. So I pulled over, and then I wrote down a document on my phone called "My Life is Being Run by God.docx." And then I wrote it down, and then I came back a few days later. That entire feeling just left me. It was like I never had it. So I went back and looked at the document. I said, wow, did I really feel all of this at the time? Was I really in that place? And you look at it, and it jogs the memory. And it doesn't always come to you, because you and our own readiness ebbs and flows. But when speaking about these truths to others, there is an interesting thing that we are all familiar with. When you're talking to somebody, what you say is not what they hear, because everybody receives words through the lens of their experiences. I have, over the past 20 years, taught hundreds and hundreds of classes, meditation classes on karma, Vedanta, yoga, and so on. And it's always interesting to me when I talk to people after the class, how different people have received the exact same class in radically different ways. They would have picked up something that I said in the beginning, which I hadn't put too much of an emphasis in my mind, but it landed for them in a very resonant kind of way. And sometimes they might have even picked up something that I never intended to say. And it's not just me. Anybody that has led a few classes are familiar with this. And Swami Kriyananda gives a wonderful way to think about it. He says, when speaking about the larger truths in life, scriptural truths about how to be happy, the nature of God and soul, and all the inner life, it's like coming to the center of a wheel so that it applies to many different circumstances in life. The more true something is, the more it's applicable to diverse set of circumstances. So people hear it differently. See, that's the nature of these truths. But I've also learned over the years to what they call as read the room. See who is in front of you, because not everything might be appropriate for all people, because words are loaded, and when they are received, and people have no experience to pick up on the meaning of the words, they don't know what to do with it. And I should tell a joke. This is about different meanings of words. This is, I have studied computer science formally. I have a degree in it. And back in the 90s, there was AI, artificial intelligence, back then too. And the big thing then was building computer programs that can translate from one language to another. And in my AI textbook back then, there was an example given of the pitfalls of doing this, of the dangers of doing this. The example was as follows. Somebody built a computer program to translate from English to Russian, and they also built a program to translate from Russian to English. And to test how good this program was, they wanted to type in a sentence in English, have it translated to Russian, and type in the same sentence in Russian and have it translated back to English. Okay, and this is what they typed in. They typed in, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And we all know this saying. So it got translated to Russian through this program, and then it got retranslated back to English. So what came back? The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. What came back was the vodka was good, but the meat was bad. Teachings land in people's minds based on the context. Okay. So you have to read the room and be careful. Part of it is to avoid misunderstandings. Okay, but that's the smaller part. The other part is that we might end up sowing doubt in people's minds. That if someone comes to you, they don't have much of a spiritual life yet, and then say, "Okay, I'm going through a crisis in my life. What should I do?" And then you say, "Well, surrender to God, offer all that you are to God, and seek His help in every single thing that you are going through. It is going to come. This is the testimony of all saints." Then you throw in some Sanskrit and Latin there for good measure, quote the gospel. They have no place to hang it in their head. They might listen to you very earnestly, but they have no place to hang it in their head. And then what happens, this is the real pitfall of this, is doubt arises. It's not simply because they are suspicious of what you said, or even they cannot follow the logic of what you said, but Swami Kriyananda says that there is a natural inner resistance within us that counters the soul's need to expand into God. There is a natural inner resistance, and that resistance expresses itself as doubt. Doubt is one of its most potent weapons. Discouragement is another one. And between doubt and discouragement, it leads to weakness. Yogananda said that when we doubt, we cut off the divine will, and all we have is our own willpower. Great though it is, it's nowhere near up to the task. So the real danger, the real need to read the room, to contextualize what you say to who is in front of you and what is relevant for them, is because by not doing so, you risk sowing doubt in their mind. Not so much sowing doubt. Doubt is already sown, so sprouting the already sown doubt in their minds, and it might take months or years for them to come back. Now, this is one aspect of it. But the second one, like I said in the beginning, what about when we doubt ourselves? And as I said, things are not always the same. There are times of high uplifted energy, and other times maybe your meditations are not going great. You just went through a crisis in life. You feel like your prayers are being unanswered. Now, when the mind is vulnerable, this is where Maya, delusion, takes a stronger foothold, and then it creates doubts. It says, are these teachings ineffective? Did I put all my eggs in the wrong spiritual basket? Should I go explore something else? Or another one, am I not deserving of the truth? Am I the swine that Jesus talked about in the Bible? Am I doomed karmically? And so when these kinds of things come up, and it's pretty natural, and anytime we commit ourselves, the spiritual path needs commitment, concentration on one single thing, not exploring here and there, not dallying, and that commitment comes with it. Endemic to that commitment is the potential for doubting, right? Because they go hand in hand. Then what do we do in such a case? And I've collected a few tips and techniques and a few words of encouragement from Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda. So I want to share them with you. So the first thing is, when we are beset by doubt and things are not going well, when we have a crisis in our lives, often we want to analyze. We want to seek answers in some writing or talk to someone, things like that. And that's all great. You should do that. But here's what Yogananda said. This is pretty interesting. He said that there will never come a saint on earth who will answer all questions of all human beings. And this is true, perhaps, of the writings of our own path as well, that maybe there come crises in your life where you can leaf through all the books that Yogananda has written and Swamiji has written, and no answer jumps out at you. But thankfully, this sentence has a second part to it. There will never come a saint on earth who will answer all questions of all human beings, but in the temple of meditation, every riddle of life that troubles the heart shall be resolved. So this is a fundamental switch that we make when we are assailed with doubts. Yes, seek answers through the conscious mind. Seek answers through heart connections with other people, but primarily seek answers in the calmness of meditation. And practically, this means a few things. The first is, if you haven't established a steady habit of meditation, and I'm very sure there is nobody in this room or anybody that's listening to this for whom this is not the case, but just in case you haven't established a consistent habit of meditation, don't wait. I cannot tell you the number of times I have talked to people where I say, I have this, they've come to a long meditation workshop or even take an initiation into Kriya Yoga. Say, how's your meditation going? Well, it's kind of faltering. I have this really big thing going on in life right now, and I'm just waiting for that one thing to clear, and then I'll have more time to meditate. Well, guess what? 10 years later, that is still going to be the case. 20 years later, that is still going to be the case. So the time to find God is now, as Yogananda said, and practically it means no matter what's happening in your life, establish the habit of twice daily meditations. It's very important. Second, if you already have the habit of meditation, here is one thing that happens in practice. When you're really committed to this, these things begin to happen. You have a big task list in front of you and you want to do all of that, and then you say, once this is done, I'm going to do my morning meditation. And then I did this earlier on when I came on the path, and I always had a big task list. So my morning and evening meditations started at 9 p.m. or at 10 p.m. I did the morning meditation, rested for 5 minutes, and did the evening meditation just to check off the boxes. And then it became 11 p.m. And then it couldn't become 12 a.m. because it's next day, so my logical mind wouldn't permit that kind of an atrocity. So there was a natural limit there. But where I'm going with this is meditation takes a lot of self-discipline. But also, it takes a bit of a shift in focus. if you have a lot of tasks in front of you, against all advice from your logical mind and time management experience, ignore those tasks and meditate first and see what happens. Almost certainly, you're going to find that you will be more efficient in going through those tasks. I speak from personal experience on this, and I'm sure many other long-time meditators will agree with me. So don't postpone your meditation. Let that be, so prioritizing meditation is very important. Remember, what I'm talking about is what to do when these techniques, these practices, these teachings don't work for you, when you are going through a time of crisis. When everything's going well, it's actually, once you've done it a few years, it's rather easy to meditate. But then when things are not going well, it isn't. So that's where don't postpone your meditation. Make it a habit. And once you start prioritizing this, life will become different. Then the next one is get into the habit of asking God for help. And what I mean by that is, again, when we have crisis in our lives, we'll say, okay, well, kind of as a side note, you say, well, Lord, please help me. And then after that, I'm going to do something else that will give me real help. I'm going to talk to someone, or I'm going to take this medicine, or I'm going to consult with someone, these kinds of things. Of course, you have to do what you have to do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But again, shifting priorities and says, what if I asked God for help? And what if there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to receive it? It will take time to develop, but it's really good to get into that habit, because that right there is the very essence of the spiritual path. Not so much the techniques. The techniques will get you calm enough so that you can feel God's presence and ask for His help and listen to it. That's the only purpose of the techniques. The real shift in focus is what all the teachings say in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, Bhagavad Gita is the conversation between Krishna, God in human form, and his devotee Arjuna. It sprawls across 18 chapters and across 700 verses. And this is in verse number 692, Krishna says, okay, now I have taught you all the secrets of the spiritual path. Every question that you have, you will find answer in whatever I have taught you. And then he says, think about everything that I have taught you, and then do as you wish. So, because even God doesn't stand in front of our free will. So this is verse number 693. Then in 694, you see this aspect of Krishna all the time, this loving aspect for his devotee. He comes back and says, let me just tell you one more thing, because I love you so much. And this is such a big secret. Don't tell this to anybody. And then he says, these are his own words. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyom mokshaishyami ma shuchaha. He says, forget all other dharmas, meaning all techniques, all duties, all the things that I've told you. Forget all of that and surrender to me alone. Because when you do that, because I love you, I will get rid of all of your sins. Do not grieve. And then after that, in verse number 696, he says, did you really get what I told you? No, this is how the Gita progresses. But where I was going with this is, God is waiting for you to ask him. And so get into the habit of going into meditation twice daily, and in that calmness that comes after the practice of your techniques, spend a few moments, a few minutes, feeling God's presence in whatever way that is pleasing to your heart. And then once you feel that, once you have that feeling of touching the hem of infinity, as Yogananda said, then ask him very specifically, what you should do. Not in generic terms, please take care of my problems, Lord. You know what they are. I don't need to tell you. I don't want to do anything. Just take care of it, and by the time I open my eyes, let them all go away. That's a generic prayer, and it's not very actionable by God because there's free will. He doesn't know what it is that you want. So better to say, what should I feel about this particular situation? How should I face this? What choice should I make? Be very specific, and then learn to listen to the answer. Because that's the other part of the whole thing, is learning to listen, having a relationship with God. So we are more likely to listen to someone who is our friend than to someone who is a stranger. So making God our friend and having a relationship with him is the other aspect of this. There was one talk that Yogananda gave, and there he said something which, for some reason, maybe my mind was in a receptive place, but it really thrilled me to the bone. And this was what he said. He said, he was talking to a large audience, and he said, one day I was talking to God, and I asked him, God, why did you create all of us? And then Yogananda said, God replied to him, he said, because my son, I wanted to enjoy myself through others. And then apparently God went on to say that I have created yearning in all of creation. All of creation is always yearning for something. And inanimate objects, rivers always yearn for the ocean. Every single drop that falls from the sky eventually yearns for the ocean because that's its destiny. Animals and humans yearn for happiness. This part is all fine. Many of you have perhaps heard of this, but this is the part that thrilled me. And he said, God says, I impose the same yearning upon myself. And what is it that God yearns for? He says, I yearn for the love and attention of all hearts until all hearts turn away from stop loving my creation and turn towards me. I will keep yearning. And so this is the context that we need to take in our conversations with God. I find this thrilling that there is this infinite, omnipresent, omniscient power whose only yearning is for me to give my heart, for you to give your heart. And what a feeling that is. That changes the equation in an extraordinary way. That God is, Yogananda said that God is standing at the doorstep of your consciousness. All you need to do is invite him in. So establishing this twice daily appointments with God, changing our mindset that we are going to get answers to all of our questions and crises in this conversation with God, and establishing that friendship in whatever form is pleasing to you. It could be Jesus Christ or Krishna or Divine Mother, or for those of us that are disciples, it could be the eyes of the Guru. In this context, there is no difference between God and Guru, because he is yearning, sitting there at the doorstep of our consciousness. That's how powerful the draw is. But he wouldn't come in until we say, knock, knock, who's there? God, come in, please. That transaction at some point needs to happen. Now, this is all well and good, but I do want to offer a final thought, and I'll end my talk with this. And that is, what if despite all of these, still your meditations are not going well, and there's not much progress that you're making? Oh, here's another thing that Yogananda said, every sincere effort is registered in the divine consciousness. In the autobiography of a yogi, Lahiri Mahashaya, he is this gentleman down on the stage right, and he receives Kriya initiation from his guru, Babaji, that is one who is above Lahiri Mahashaya here on the altar. And then Babaji says, when you give Kriya initiation to everybody, make this promise from the Bhagavad Gita. And then I'll repeat that promise. One part of it is well known. The second part of it perhaps is not that well known. And this is chapter 2, verse 40, says, Nehabhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamatyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So the second part, swalpamatyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, even a little practice of this inner religion will free you from dire fears and colossal sufferings. But the first part, Nehabhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate, it says, in this path, in this spiritual path, no effort is wasted and there are no side effects. That when you're meditating, there is really no bad effect at all. And it's never wasted. It's there lodged into the karmic memory, in the spine. And maybe it's a test that one is going through, that it feels like it's very dark and no prayers being answered, but it's being lodged, logged, catalogued, added, tabulated in the divine consciousness, because here's the final thing. He says, Yogananda says, all that is necessary is that we make the effort to practice the presence of God. How well we do it is up to karma and dharma and God, but we need to make the effort. This effort is all that God expects. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen.
Is there anywhere on earth perfect freedom, sorrow's dearth?